This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
The Six Nations round 2 is over, and there was a disturbing air of deja vu around it. But we're not here to discuss the games. We're here to discuss the players who have furthered their causes for the Lions. This is Picking the Pride. Let's start the show.
You're listening to United Rugby Rewind.
Joining me this week are the Rugby BC, Ben and that Caolan. How are you, gents?
Good evening.
Good evening. All good.
Right, let's get straight into it. So, kind of an interpod derby between yourselves, the Irish and the Scottish contingents. Ben, as the consolation prize for coming off second best on the scoreboard, you get to go first. We start the show with our contenders. These are the players who we think are going to be in with a shout of starting the first test for the British and Irish Lions against Australia this summer. Ben, from this weekend's games, who has caught your eye?
From a Scottish perspective, it'd be Rory Darge this weekend. I was close to picking him last weekend, but I think his performance again yesterday, although it was a loss, he can be pretty happy with his performance. I think 17 tackles he made, which was almost double the next person in the list.
Large, Darge, and in charge.
That's right.
Darge, dip, dive, duck, and Darge.
Yeah.
We get it.
That is a mouthful. Yeah, he was fantastic again yesterday. I think his maturity shone through in that performance. I think it's particularly impressive considering that the rest of the front five were not as good yesterday as has been previously. And I think there's some concerns about the second row in particular, but I think he can be very pleased with his performance. I think Jacqueline again for fun. He's just going in. He's just everywhere around the field, just going in for tackles, and he's always present. And yeah, I think he's someone that is definitely in the conversation for first choice.
He's one of those players that a lot of people, who don't watch Glasgow and Edinburgh and things, might not know some of the Scottish players, particularly the Scottish pack. Apart from Xander Ferguson and Pierre Schumann, that you don't know that many players. But once Darge is pointed out to you, you think, "Oh, I'm hearing this guy's name a lot on commentary," and he's phenomenal. 30 tackles, 90% success rate, which is not to be sniffed at. 6 dominant hits. I think he's got the most dominant hits of anybody.
He does, yeah.
Does 6 in 2 games. No one has more. Played the full 80 in both games as well. Yeah, just I've become a big fan of the guy. But Caolan, you were saying that in terms of the open side spot for the Lions, you look at the profile of the players, and there's a lot of awfully similar players.
Yeah.
And you talk about kind of not the biggest guys, but Jack Morgan, Darge, Josh van der Fleer, Ben Earl, maybe one of the Curry brothers. There's not much to split them, and it's going to be fine margins if who actually makes it.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to go into a deep dive on why the Lions tour can get toxic for reasons like these or anything like that, because we're not going to say that. But there is an element where everyone's going to want their guy in always. Like, I've had Irish fans on to me being like, Josh van der Fleer has to be in there. English guys being like, Tom Curry has to be your starter. My thing is, I actually think there is literally only one flanker spot. I actually think that when it's all said and done, we could see a Chesham, a Byrne, a Cunningham South, a big brawny 6 getting picked to make up for the fact there's probably going to be a Toja in Byrne. You're probably going to lose a bit of size there. And if Tyke Furlong doesn't make it or Porter doesn't make it, it changes the pack in particular. But it is very samey players. The 2 Curry brothers, yes, they are twins, aren't they?
They are samey.
They are samey. They are
Actually,
twins, though.
I was looking at Ben Curry's numbers. Ben Curry isn't in the show tonight, spoiler alert, everybody, but his numbers are phenomenal. Like, it takes a lot for me to admit that, but it's true.
And Tom is playing very well. I've met the 2 Curry brothers actually at a Sale game before. They're grand lads. Not big, huge men. And if I'm saying that, Australia wouldn't say that.
Yeah, like we said, a lot of open sides at top level these days. You'd be surprised at how not big
Mm.
some of them are.
Exactly. It's gone that way that your seven is your small forward role. Most people have a big number eight, not everyone, and a lot of people now have gone for like an auxiliary lock at six. It seems to be the way the pack builds are going. So I think I'll just go through the names. Jack Morgan for me has to tour because I do think he'll bring something a little bit different insofar as he plays as an edge forward, for instance,
Yeah, I
and
think Jack Morgan is
prob
better with the ball than Darge, but I think Darge is
mm,
better without the ball.
but I think Darge and Van der Fleer are your off-ball sevens, and Curry, and
Dodge's timing at the breakdown is impeccable. Like
yeah,
it's that split second he gets that gap, he anticipates it, and he did that
and
very
he's
well
just a
yesterday.
wonderful like. Sorry, my, I do not have a ring light for anyone on YouTube. I'm using the PlayStation in front of me as and the telly as kind of like a ring light. But that's kind of it. Like he hits everything that kind of moves, to use that cliche. Hits well. He but it depends on what you're looking for from your flankers. They're not going to bring 4-7. Someone is going to miss out. At least one is going to miss out. I think Van der Fleer tours. I think Curry is playing his way into it, but like Jack Morgan, there's a massive injury question mark over the two of them because they haven't been able to stay fit. I think Darge is thereabouts. I have him in my. So if anyone follows me on Twitter or on Blue Sky, I'm doing a going through the rounds. Here's who I have it as of right now, and nothing else factored in. But as of right now, bar Furlong, because I think Tyhead isn't great. We'll get onto that later. But and I still have Darge in there because there's no reason not to. He's playing really, really well. I would give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he tours, but it's just depending on what they want. I think when the coaches do assemble, the question they'd be asking themselves at the back row is, what is our preferred build? And I think that's going to take two lads and slide them back. I think if Van der Fleer is their number one choice, that's going to suit Darge because they're the most like for like. It's going to suit Curry. It may not suit Ben Earl as a potential open side, but probably as a number eight, he'll be fine. And it may not suit Jack Morgan, but we'll see.
Do we know who the forwards coach is going to be yet? Has that been announced? Because that'll
Nothing
obviously
yet.
influence. That would have an impact on who
There,
goes,
there
right? Because
was
they will have a
talk.
particular style they want to
There was talk that
bring
Paul
to the
O'Connell
table.
could go, but I doubt as a forwards coach, probably as a line-out coach. If it's a forwards coach, I think it's an interesting one. I don't think anyone jumps off the page. Like last time, Tandy Townsend made a lot of sense. The Irish lads weren't really keen on going because they were a newly formed coach and take it all of them. It won't be Easterby. We know that because he's with
Can't be him.
he's with Ireland. I don't know who England's forwards coach is. Is it Elabt?
They've
Is
run out
he?
of coaches, haven't they?
They kind of
It's probably
have.
just Borthwick. I'll see if I
It
can
could it
Google
could
it.
be just Borthwick. I don't see Borthwick going. Like they
No.
won't be like a Townsend situation last time. They won't have that. I don't see a Welsh coach going
Nope.
unless
Absolutely
unless
none of them are going.
maybe someone like Adam Jones potentially as a scrum coach. I
No,
could see
no, no.
that.
That's for a story for another day, but that's pure PR.
All
Right,
right. Well,
appointments.
well, fair enough. But like the WRU need all the good news that they can get at the
So on
moment.
Wikipedia, Steve Borthwick is down England head coach and line-out coach.
That makes sense. He was pretty decent in the lineout,
Yeah,
but
I'll give him that.
it's a wide up one. I think Felix Jones goes. I think Tandy goes as defense coach. Potentially Felix Jones as attack coach. Depends. They could just go with those two and then a set piece coach potentially.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why Steve Tandy wouldn't go as defense coach again
But
because he's been
but
excellent.
we're not picking coaches, we're picking players. And in
Can we do a
terms,
coaches episode?
maybe in terms of the what you want from a seven, I think it actually after thinking about it for a minute, I think it works in Darge's favour because you would think against Australia, look, Australia aren't the best team in the world. But there's the Joe Schmidt factor. So whilst they're not going to be, you will get the ball against Australia and you will have opportunities. They're still going to be a Joe Schmidt team, and we know how Joe Schmidt teams play, i.e., hold the ball. So I think that kind of helps take, just as a pure example, if you in test one go Jack Morgan, thinking that you're going to get the ball a lot and have lots of attack. If Joe Schmidt has something up his sleeve and that goes wrong, then maybe in the second test you bring in Darge and say, okay, well, we'll combat it. Or maybe one's off, you start Darge and bring Jack Morgan off the bench, something like that. Especially if you're going to go 6-2 with the Lions. So
Ben Earl is going to be in the equation if you go on ball. If you're predicting that you're going to have a lot of the ball and that's your tactic, I think Ben Earl makes a lot of sense because he'll add that little bit more power. And then you could move just Darge over to six and just see if it works. I think you could see a Darge, Earl, Doris back row potentially in a warm-up game. I think that was something they could look at. But as I said, I think if I was to call it, I think the build will be a hybrid. So either Byrne, Itoje, Martin, Chesham, or even a Cunningham South because he's just that bit bigger than most of the blindside flankers. I think it'll be Curry, Morgan, Van der Fleer, Darge, one of those four, I think, and then Doris. I think Doris is the nailed on number 8
I
with
think
Earl
Doris
as
is
a backup.
captain.
Well, if he's
Um,
captain, he
Yeah,
has
well,
to. Yeah,
hasn't been named yet, but
but I think it's likely, isn't it?
I think we all know he's going to be captain. To be fair, he's taken to it a lot better this year. I think he's handled things well. I will, while we're on the talk of captaincy, because he's likely been in the squad. I think Finn Russell, from what I've seen of him, has actually done very well at dealing with referees. For a 10, sorry if there's any 10s listening, but for a 10, like even you take the Doohan incident when Finn was still on the field at this point, he approaches James Dolman. He says, well, how come you've spent 5 minutes looking at this? You didn't look at a knock on earlier. That led to their initial score. Like, we just want a bit of consistency. It's still early in the game. That is what you want to see. And it's probably like leadership we spoke about last week with Jamie George in particular. That's going to be a massive factor in these decisions because there's going to be so many inexperienced guys in a Lions tour setting.
It's mad
Finn
to
has
think
experience though.
that Caolan Doris wasn't on the last Lions tour.
Yeah, well, that was
It's
because of
mad to
injury.
think how
In
much
fairness,
he's climbed. Let's
yeah,
look.
he had
No,
a series of head injuries in 2021, so that's what ruled him out.
without like, we're not planning, we don't plan these shows in ahead. So we watch the games and then we pick our standout players. But there's kind of a good chance that Caolan Doris isn't going to feature in this series because he just seems so obvious. It's like not a talking point. A bit like Ty Burn and Maritoje are probably also not going to feature in episodes because everyone
Oh,
assumes
in
they
episode,
go.
I thought you meant in the test series. I was like, what is this guy
No,
on
no,
about?
in these sorry, I mean in this series of
Yeah.
podcasts. Um,
I think we should just recap it at the end, just to make sure everyone gets
but
covered.
Caolan Doris is like hands down the best player available to the Lions, in my opinion. So yeah, Ben, last words on Darge then. In terms of the Scottish forwards, like at some point in this podcast series, we will talk about Xander Fagerson because you and I love that guy to bits.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but
They're the only two I'd be taking from a forward perspective at the moment. I think.
Scottish
Yeah, they're
forwards.
the only two
Really?
nailed on. Yeah, I'm struggling to see anything beyond those two right now, based on the first two games.
I'd agree with that. I think that makes sense. I do think Jack Dempsey is underrated, but like I said, he's just not quite stand out enough. But
Dempsey was quiet yesterday. He was
Yeah.
very quiet, I thought.
okay, I'm going to go next. So my contender. So obviously I'm here as the Welsh voice, and it's tricky being me right now. But I could have gone and picked one of the Curry brothers or something, but I have decided to go for a Welsh player because I do think it's important that we have at least one player from each nation in each show. And this show, I am going for Talupe Faletau. So he came back into the team having been out injured for the first game. He's not been able to string together much fitness over the last couple of years. You would say that we are approaching last dance territory for Talupe Faletau. In terms of the golden generation, trying to think, is there anybody else in the team who was there if we can consider the 2011 World Cup, the start of Wales's golden generation, is he the last one? Yes, I
He
think he
is.
is off the top of my
By
head.
quite some
He's
distance now, I would
he's
say.
a
It's
few
got
years
to be.
older than Liam Williams, isn't he?
Yeah,
That would
I
be the
think
only one that would
no,
come close.
Liam Williams kind of comes in sort of 2014, 15
Mm.
Yeah,
kind of time. Josh Adams didn't come in until 2019. I'm not counting
Anscombe was
Adam.
2019.
Yeah. No, Gaskin came in before that. He was just always injured. And I'm not counting Adam
Fair.
Beard. I'm just not doing that.
Why?
So
Why not? Is this the Scarlet's bias? Oh, this is a URC podcast.
so Felipe Faletau. So obviously in a horrendous Welsh performance out in Rome that we're not going to spend too much time on, Felipe Faletau was out there working miracles to keep it as respectable as it was. So his stats from the game was 15 carries, which is the most of anybody, with 56 meters made. Phenomenal numbers to be putting that up, but like easily the best of anyone on the Welsh team. 5 passes, 1 offload, 1 defender beaten, 16 out of 19 tackles. Again, the top. Look, my rule of thumb for a world-class back rower is if you are top for tackles and for carries in the same game, you're world class. And that's what Talupi Faletau was in this game. 1-1 turnover, the only Jackal turnover, and took more line-outs than any other Welsh player as well. So if you're talking about line-out forwards, that's an extra string to his bow. But for me, the thing that,
He'd have
like I
that on
said,
other number eights as well. None of the other number eights in contention are really line out options.
yeah, and when I'm talking last dance territory, I really, obviously, the romantic side of me wants to see Talupi Faletau's last dance be a Lions tour to Australia. But like we said, there's going to be a lot of Lions debutants on this tour. Talupi Faletau wouldn't be that. Now, we've just talked about the fact that Caelan Doris is nailed on. But could there be a space for it, like again, in a 6-2 scenario, for Talupi Faletau to get some test game time, or even just like be in the environment, midweek captain like type scenario where him and Jamie George are going to be, in my opinion, the two Lions who are kind of doing it again. Players who've played a lot of tests for the Lions will be back again. And I just think that when you're talking about a Lions tour, like who's the guy that Razzie brought back in 2021 to kick the goals?
Francois
Mornay
Stein.
Stone. Francois
Oh,
Stone.
Mornay. It was Mornay. Yeah,
Mornay
it was.
Yeah. So just that kind of element about it. And look, Talupi Faletau, according to some people, is the most talented rugby player Wales has ever had. So for me, if you're talking about contenders not called Jack Morgan, Talupi Faletau is there to say, look, just give me one more season. And he could bow out after this Lions tour for me, and he's done a job. So I don't know what your guys' take on that is.
It's good to have the experience there, I think, particularly if you've got a captain and a number 8 who's never been on tour before. It's a lot of responsibility, and Faletau is that sort of steady hand, isn't he? He's been around the block a good few times now, and yeah, I know that there's a bit of romance in it all, but there does seem to be some logic to taking someone like him, because he's someone there where, the people new to a tour or new to a different system can look to him as that kind of steer. And it is important to have a midweek leader, because there are going to be at least 5 or 6 games. I know obviously Melbourne Rebels have gone, but there might still be a substitute game in there, whether it's against a Wallabies Indigenous 15 or whatever they might create for that. So there's still going to be 4 or 5 games where he can influence and contribute, and it's the same with the training as well. So yeah, I think Faletau, it's a good shout. I just think it just depends on how Farrell looks at it really and what he wants. Because that is his first game. How long? When was the last time he played before? I've not seen much of him at Cardiff this season at all.
He's just come back from Cardiff. He basically had a whole year out last season.
Yeah, it's tough to come back at this age from such a long time out to go on a Lions tour after being in a pretty dispiriting performance against Italy. Granted, his performance was outstanding, but the whole negativity around Wales at the moment, I think Farrell's going to look to limit the amount of Welsh players he takes for that reason, where Jack Morgan will go. But if there's any maybes, you're going to fall on the wrong side of maybe because of how Wales are performing at the moment. And I think it's going to be difficult to ignore that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think not the only thing that works against him, and I hate using that term again, but he is just your typical, more heavy number 8 type player, and that could be something that they look at and they might go, do you know what? We have an Earl, a Doris, they're very similar. They could potentially look at a Matt Fagerson who is in a similar-ish mold to Caolan Doris. And then there's obviously the hashtag cohesion, which has been ripping across Irish rugby since 2020.
It was on your pods that I said that Talupi Faletau was better than Adi Surveyor, wasn't it?
Was it on mine? Or
was it
on
on
this?
yours? It was on someone's.
It was definitely. I remember being there. It was either on this or on mine. It was one or the other.
Is that a comment you wish to retract now?
No.
Or is that you still standing by it? Okay.
Absolutely not. In fact, the point I was about to make is I think that Talupi Faletau's ball handling skills are better than Caolan Doris's.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. If there's one weakness that Caolan Doris has, it is his handling. His footwork's very good, tackling, engine. He's a very good
as
number 8.
As an edge forward again.
He's not an edge forward, though.
Am I making the case that
Jack
Talupi
Conan
Faletau
is your
should
edge
start
forward
ahead of Caolan Doris for the Lions? I feel like I've started that journey.
Can I suggest a very early bolter, because we won't be touching on back rows after this? Is Jack Conan a bolter again? He's playing very well. Like, and
don't know.
I'm not like I didn't grow up the biggest Jack Conan fan. I always thought he was fine, but like there is something about it when the clock turns lines here. This lad just goes right. We ball
Step
like
it up. Yeah,
we do it, and he has been superb the last 2 weeks.
he was fantastic yesterday, and he took his try very well too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's not he's toured before, hasn't he? So there's
he
always
yeah
an
Yeah.
opportunity for
2021
some.
started played all 3 tests actually.
Yeah, oh, right, that sounds right. Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason not to bring him
Did he play
because
at
you don't
six?
want
Did he
him to
play
get
at
beyond
6 or 8?
6.
Did he play
He
6 or 8? And
I think he may have played minutes at 6, but I think he played predominantly
No,
at
because
number 8.
Laws was at 6.
Laws was at 6, and
okay,
Byrne got minutes at 6 as well. Similar to what we're talking about here with the pack build. I think it's going to be similar. I'm not going to
Gatland
say
got
Courtney
it's
Laws.
a subject for another pod, but Gatland got the selection in 2020 wrong. So wrong.
Oh, so bad.
So wrong.
Center
Remember the whole
was.
Sam Simmons thing? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What was
Jesus.
going on there?
Elliot
What was
Daly.
all that
And
about?
Elliot Daly, I'm not trying to piss in your parade. Terrific try. What a moment. Like a player who's done it all.
That's his only touch of the Six Nations so far, by the way, that try against France.
That's insane. Don't play. Just refuse to play.
Yeah,
just
just
live
retire
with
now.
that. But he started a
100%
test at
stat.
13 in the last Lions tour.
Yeah.
While Gary Ringrose and Bundyaki were both Ringrose at home and Aki wasn't involved.
George North did his knee a couple of months before the Lions tour. I
Mm.
think he would have been Lions 13 if it hadn't been for that.
But
in my
that
opinion.
says a lot too, because again, we've talked about the Irish three centres. Anyways,
Yeah.
enough. Moving on.
So yeah, so that's Faletau. Looks like I'm dying on this hill, so I'll see you there. So Caolan, your contender for this week.
My contender, and I keep forgetting as to who I chose as contender because, like last week, I've gone with James Lowe. And I do not think this was the swashbuckling, I'm James Lowe, I've got the long hair, I'm going to run past you type performance that we've seen, especially in last year's Six Nations. I remember myself and yourself, Hugh, having the conversation at the end of last year's Six Nations. He was like, and you basically saying to a bunch of Irish guys on the pod, "Lads, James Lowe is your best player." And he was brilliant last year, but I think this year.
I kind of think that James Lowe and Tyburn must hate each other low key because they are stealing Player of the Match awards off them every other
Well,
each other every other week.
neither of them won it either the last 2
You know,
weeks.
if Tyburn wasn't a thing, James Lowe would be like.
But James Lowe
no
didn't win Man of
question
the Match
Ireland's
last
best
week
player.
somehow, and I mean that with the greatest respect to Keith Spark. But back to James Lowe and his hair and his demeanor and everything about him, and he's recently become a dad for the second time, and congratulations to him, I should say actually. But
He's such a weird winger. He's such a weird player.
I thought you were going to say something else when you said weird. He's a strange dude. No, he's playing really, really well. I think that a bit of that is when we associate Southern Hemisphere wingers as being power wingers, we think of, and I mean this with the greatest respect, we think of Duhan, big strong man. We think of Lester Fayanuku, for example,
of Pacific
huge
Islanders.
man. You know, your Pacific Islanders types, your Surveyors. James Lowe is a power winger. He's not the quickest, but he will beat you in one-on-one situations 80% of the time. We've seen it for one little half break he had down the left-hand side. A lot of this match, we could have done this as our big matchup because it was him against Duhan. It's not.
Yeah, that was just discussion for the head-to-head still to
Yeah.
come.
And it wasn't because they're not on the same, you know what I mean? But
11 tries in the Six Nations so far for James Lowe in his career.
wow. I think the Irish record is O'Driscoll, but I think second place is only like 18. He could, just saying, he could get there.
Is Hogg quite high up on that list?
Yeah, he kind of.
Let's not Google it.
He's yeah. Anyways, back to James Lowe.
Don't Google
he's-
Stuart Hogg because that won't be the first thing that comes up.
Let's just edit this bit out and go back. This tries a really good score, actually. By
It
the
is.
way, like
He's done
Twitter.
Kinghorn. Yeah.
he's done Kinghorn. He's fucking McDowell is a very good tackler, and he's just kind of breezed past him as well. Now McDowell does really, really well. Is it? Sorry, Ben.
I'm going to interrupt here, Caleb. The
There we
best
go.
thing about James Lowe here is the finesse of dabbing down. He waits a
Yes.
half a second
I
while
was
he's in
going
the
to say
tackle,
that.
waiting to be rolled. You'll see what he does, and then
Yeah,
he goes, right,
there
I've
it
now
is.
got the opportunity because I'm facing the right direction. And at first I was like, oh, that might be held up. Then he saw it, and I was like, no, that's
Yeah,
just
fair play to the
fantastic win
referee,
play.
you have to say.
I did think he should have given the pass because one of the men outside him is Bundyaki, like, but he does really well. He's playing really, really well. Is James Lowe? I think one of the reasons that I keep going back to him ahead of Duhan, and look, wingers, everyone's go-to with a winger is he can't defend, he can't tackle. It's always the thing. James Lowe's kicking ability is massive.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
it's a cheat code.
it is.
It's a
And Ireland
cheat
kicked a
code.
lot more in this game. You could have looked at this game and not realized, especially me at halftime, I did not realize Ireland's kicking meters were massive. I think they kicked
Yeah,
like 500 meters or 400 meters the first half alone.
I'll tell you now.
It was insane. James Lowe was a lot of it. Obviously, Sam Prendergast, Gibson Park, big parts of that too, and Hugo Keenan. But Lowe's kicking ability, I think he suits the modern defenses. I think when he burst onto the scene, a lot more teams were kind of playing a drift defense. It didn't really suit him. He wanted to make a decision early, and that does suit him. He wraps you up man and ball. If I'm going to go on to defense, I think he's a better defender than Duhan van der Merwe. I don't think he's a better
agreed.
finisher. I don't think he's as fast, but I think he's a better defender. I think he's got a better kicking game. And for me, he is my starter in week one. I will
Well,
say before I move off,
Duhan doesn't kick, does he? Duhan never kicks.
Duhan doesn't kick. He just, to use
And nor does
Harry
Darcy.
Jones's phrase, he just does this every week where he just dives, but probably the right time this time. Just before I move off it, because I want to get your thoughts on James Lowe, a word for Darcy Graham, because he was released from hospital last night. He did suffer a concussion. It was a very nasty blow. I hope we do see him on the Lions tour, because he's the type of player that there's always one every year. Like there was Christian Wade, there was Reece Zammit. There's always one guy, even like a Tommy Seymour, that you just enjoy. And I really do wish him the best luck in his recovery.
I think we're lucky it's just a concussion based on how bad that looked when he was down last night. I'm like, I'm not going to swear, but thank F that it wasn't anything worse than that.
Absolutely.
And if he goes
And
into concussion protocols, he could make the England game in 2 weeks' time.
Well,
possibly.
I hope not, because that's my own opinion on these things.
Well,
I hope not. But
as well with Finn saying that he passed his HIA, but they
Yeah.
felt he was concussed, so they didn't take him on.
Because
They
they
felt he-
questioned him and he'd forgotten certain plays in the first 20 minutes. They're like, no. So it kind of
Have
brings
they
into
ruled
question-
out that he just wasn't paying attention in the backs meeting?
Well, he had his phone in his back pocket again, probably. And
that reminds me, ask me about
Shut
Thomas
it down
Ramos at the end of this. We had a conversation with this watching the match yesterday, but we're not talking about French players in this podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So the head-to-head could have been James Lowe and Duhan van der Merwe. And by the way, I agree with you, Caolan. James Lowe starts for the Lions against Australia, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's not the head-to-head because we decided to go for a different Ireland versus Scotland matchup. And we've gone for the fullbacks. The fullbacks this week were Hugo Keenan against Blair Kinghorn. Now, this is an interesting conversation, in my opinion. So,
Can I ask a question before we start?
okay.
Because I feel like it's going to be controversial. Just one word. Who's your starter?
Blair Kinghorn.
Kinghorn.
See, I think Kinghorn as well, but I don't know. I feel like Ireland will go Keenan. Do you know? I feel like Kinghorn on the bench because could cover 10.
I just
could go
think,
16.
well, we're kind of skipping ahead. I'll do the stats first.
Yeah, we'll
Right.
do that.
Carries. So Keenan 7, Kinghorn 18 meters. Just quickly, I should say that Blair Kinghorn is the top carrier of any player in the Six Nations so far. Now, a lot of that is down to game plan. It's not necessarily apples for apples. And I think Kinghorn was standing in at 10 at times against Ireland.
I think he kind of morphed into that role because TJ definitely was a bit quiet for periods in that second half.
Yeah.
Also, they played the two teams that get to it the most, and typically teams who get to it and aren't going anywhere will kick. And where they're going to kick? The pendulum defender, which is, of course, Blair Kinghorn.
So meters, Keenan 16, which is low for a fullback. You don't normally see him that low. Kinghorn 130. So you're talking meters per carry. Keenan 2.3, Kinghorn 7.2. Defenders beaten, Kinghorn wins 4-1. Line breaks is ones each. Passes, again, Kinghorn was on the ball more, stepped in at playmaker more. Kinghorn 14 passes to Keenan 6. We're talking about a player that doesn't touch the ball, but when he does touch the ball, he makes it count versus a player who touches the ball a lot. And Kinghorn touches the ball a lot. Offloads 3-0 to Kinghorn. Turnovers lost, again, 4-0 to Kinghorn. So Kinghorn gets the ball more, so he's got more opportunities to make more mistakes. Kicks 3-1 to Kinghorn. Tackles made. Actually, Keenan made more, but don't judge fullbacks on tackles. And then try assists, Keenan got 1, which I think was, who was it? Nash in the corner? Was that Keenan's?
No, that was off. That was a
Keenan
Prendergast.
assisted the low one we just watched.
Try.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Kinghorn got none, obviously. So the stats are a bit of a walkover for Kinghorn. Kinghorn obviously also has a very was going to say sizable. He has a physical advantage over Keenan as well, being 12 centimeters, or sorry, 8 centimeters taller and 15 kg heavier. That's
That's a
physics.
factor as well because of the law changes, which
It
I
is indeed.
forgot what the word was, so I couldn't jump in for a second. That is a factor because bigger men are going. Look, I'm a small man myself, but bigger men are going to rule the air in rugby for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
That's just look at Tommy Freeman's try.
Mm.
It's a factor. If you kick those little ding kicks, the bigger man has that advantage because you cannot try and make him run around you.
Mm. So for me, if I give my opinion first, Keenan is a very, very, it sounds like I'm damning him with faint praise. He's a very, very tidy player. Let's not forget he was Six Nations player of the tournament 2 years ago, something like that.
Was he?
And he's the, let's say he was. And he's the only other fullback that I've ever watched that reminded me of peak Lee Halfpenny. And dear listener, Lee Halfpenny is my favorite rugby player ever. So that's high praise from me. But I just feel that Kinghorn has got too many attributes not to pick.
And to use the K word again, the kicking game, which is going to be very important. He has that over Keenan's kicking game is actually really good. The only thing is and look, this may sound really rude or really obnoxious. Irish people think we have a commodity on kicking out of hand because we play Gaelic football and it's something we just get taught to do. It doesn't get taught in the UK, it doesn't get taught in other parts of the world.
Well, Aussie rules as well for the
The
opponents.
Australians, the Australians are the exception, of course. But we always think we look at someone like Hugo Keenan, we're like, he's a very awkward kicker. You probably just look at him like, yeah, he just kicks the ball normally. To us, it's like he didn't drop it a certain way. But I think actually Hugo Keenan, if he keeps going and having the career he's having, I think he'd be Ireland's best ever fullback. But the Lions tour is in 3 months, and I think it's Kinghorns. But one more thing, top 14. Toulouse are going to go deep.
That's a great point.
And the Champions Cup as well. They'll be possibly in the final of both of those.
Yeah,
those
Toulouse won't be
competitions.
happy about that.
And that's
always a risk.
Another
with
player
losing
Mind
players.
you, Toulouse have got options in the back three.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they kind of options everywhere. You know?
Yeah. They just it's like, oh, Kinghorn's off. Is he all right? Just give Juan Cruz Malia a call.
I
Get
hear
him in.
they've a few
He's decent.
cent to spare.
Or Ange Capowitz, he's playing all right. Or Matt LaBelle, who? Yeah, you know, that really, really good winger who we don't even talk about because he's not one of our internationals. Oh, right, okay. Oh, him. Yeah, fine. Give him a go. Started the last Champions Cup final. Oh, yeah, I remember now.
Scored in the last Champions Cup final
Yeah.
to you.
So I guess Ben, as you know, the Scottish voice, is this because sometimes with players, people outside your country think like, oh, this guy's amazing, but people who watch him week in, week out, they're actually like, oh, he's not that good. Is Kinghorn that good?
He's that good now. He's gone to Toulouse. I think he's blossomed into that international class player that he wasn't when the Edinburgh 10 experiment went wrong. And the prime example I can give of that is it's not even 2 years ago. I went to Galway to watch Connacht Edinburgh. Edinburgh were dreadful that day. Kinghorn played 10 and he was poor. Intercept passes, didn't manage the game, wasn't marching people around the pitch. There was that lack of leadership. And I think he's only been at Toulouse, 14 months now, and there's been a sea change in how he's playing. And I think it took him a little bit of time to get back into that sort of Scotland type of play with the November tests, but because that's just, I guess that's the disadvantage of not being in the SRU system anymore. Is when you let players go abroad, and I think we have to do that from a Scottish perspective because we just don't have the resources to keep all this international talent. They do need to leave.
Also, I think
since going
Toulouse
to
paid you
Toulouse, he's
$500,000 for him as well.
Yeah, well, they saw potential, and that potential has been realised. I think he's been absolutely fantastic for them, and you see the way he fits straight into that back line. And I'd say it's probably from a club level. I don't think there's a better back line that's ever existed in the last couple of decades than that Toulouse back line. I think you'd be struggling to find a back line that's that talented and that deep in terms of who they have available to just slot in.
The Toulon Galacticos is a different podcast, but the Toulon Galacticos back line is pretty damn good as well.
But this Toulouse one is so consistent though, every season for 3 or 4 years now and beyond. It's just incredible. And I think Kinghorn, I was thinking, Toulouse, that's interesting. They'll maybe go to sort of maybe mid-French table team at that point, but Toulouse wanted him, they got him, and he's just slotted in there almost immediately overnight. And
is there a world where Kinghorn plays on the wing for the Lions? So if it's low on one wing, could it be Keenan at fullback?
Right wing, I think, is there.
the opposite to Lowe. You'd have Lowe on the other as 11
Yeah.
and King on as 14. Yeah, it's
It
possible.
depends
Two
on who's
big
fit.
wingers.
It is, but that's not a bad thing against Australia, who will kick. Where does Joe Schmidt teams tend to kick? They either kick way over the top of you, or they kick contestable.
And who are we thinking will be the Australia winners? Kellaway, and who would be the other one off the top of your head that would probably start?
Probably go
I
Jonathan
don't know.
15.
I don't know.
I don't think they know themselves, to be
My
fair.
Jane, do you remember? His
It's
last
a
and pass,
squad
last
influx, though,
Lions
isn't it?
tour? Jesse Mogg.
Oh,
What did he? Has anyone ever seen him since
he ended up in
the last
France.
Lions tour?
He was in the club who hires a lot of questionable players. He was in Montpellier for a while.
Ah,
Now.
Is that who Paddy Jackson played for? Is that why he's saying questionable?
No. The player we mentioned earlier.
so my
Oh,
prediction is there's
okay.
going to be an Aussie player who rips it up in Super Rugby. Or the thing with Jesse Mogg is he ripped it up. Was it for the Waratahs in
Brumbies.
the like
It was
the
Brumbies.
tour match? Was it? No, it wasn't the
Brumbies.
Brumbies. Was
It
it the
was.
Brumbies?
It was the He was a Brumbies player. He was
Oh, were
Brumbies.
you
Was
going
it
back
Jesse Mogg who
2013?
made the break and then Jeff Parling did the ankle tap that kind of
Yeah.
broke his broke his leg?
I think he was the only. I think that might have been the only game they lost on that tour in the run-in.
Are we going
Was
back?
the
Are we going back
Brumbies?
to 2013?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
they
could be
lost
wrong.
one test, didn't they? It was two.
Well, yeah, they
Second
lost the
test they
test,
lost.
but I mean,
Could have lost the first test. Gertie Beale slipped as he went to kick the ball.
Yeah, it was
But,
wet in Brisbane that night, wasn't it? I think off the top
Tell
of
you
my
what,
head.
if the
I
Lions had
remember
lost that tour, it would have been a travesty.
anyway, this is the
that Australian team.
2025 edition, guys. We better move on. I've just looked at the
So
time.
yeah, okay. So interesting. So that's the head-to-head. Well done, everybody. Let's talk about bolters. Let's talk about bolters. So these are the players who are not being spoken about, who we think, based on the Six Nations so far, could be in for a shout. So let's go with you, Caolan, first, and let's talk about your man.
I actually feel like I was doing the hipster's choice yesterday, and then everyone decided to do the exact same thing, and now I actually feel less special.
Yep.
But I think Finlay Bealham had a really good game. Now, I just want to say, and I mean this to Irish fans, to non-Irish fans, I don't think Finlay Bealham's the most underrated player in this Irish team. I think he's good. But I would have had grave concerns since the summer tour where himself and Cian Healy got pushed over their own line in a scrum. And
by the best scrum in the world by a long way.
Yes, I know, but at the same time, Ireland had the best scrum in the Six Nations last year. And there's that, and I was very concerned, but he has stepped up this game in particular. Rory Sutherland is on the downside of his career, like Bealham as well. Like, don't get me wrong, he's on the evening stretch of his career and didn't have a great game, couldn't really handle him. Around the park, 20 for 20 tackles. I know Hugh was probably going to drop that one in anyway. But he's playing really well. And tight head prop, it is Furlong and it is Fagerson and then it is unknown. Will Stewart is going to be in the mix. I think Bealham's going to be in the mix. But it's a very much an unknown.
But I think Bealham's done wonders for his ambitions this Six Nations. I said on Danny O'Brien's show that when we knew that Furlong was injured, I said the one man who Ireland need to perform now is Finlay Bealham because he's going to play a lot of minutes. And to be fair, he's put both Scotland and England's scrum into next week in both of these games. Now, obviously, Andrew Porter, someone we spoke about in the last episode, is a part of that as well. And, the second rows need to take their credit also for that effort. But I'm not sure what else Finlay Bealham could have done more. And props aren't great for stats in terms of like, oh, look at all this. Like Xander
It's the
Ferguson's,
intangibles, I think, a lot of the time.
Stats, but I think Finlay Bealham has really stepped up. And one of the if you're picking a team in the Six Nations after the first two rounds, Finlay Bealham for me is your tight head, and that hurts because I love Xander Ferguson, but I just think he's really gone. No, I'm going to be the man that Ireland need me to be at the moment. So I'm a huge fan. Ben, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, agreed. He dominated Sutherland yesterday. Sutherland was really not in the game at all. I think, apart from Andrew Porter, with sometimes his questionable drive, he's not always straight with his drive in the scrum. But I think Bealham was just outstanding yesterday, and I think a key reason why Ireland, and I think he might have won a couple of turnovers in the ruck yesterday as well. I think there was at least one, maybe two early doors where he just asserted his dominance, and after that, when that adrenaline and the momentum is going in your direction, and the referee is probably more on your side because they're seeing how dominant you are, and he was definitely the primary reason for that yesterday. And yeah, it's hard to say because obviously I don't want Ireland to win against Scotland, but as objective as I possibly can be, he was absolutely brilliant yesterday.
Yeah. Can I just say as well, they were on the Six Nations Stats website, just general website, and they've got player profiles, right? If you look at the photo that they've got for Finley Bealham, and then if you look at the photo they've got for James Lowe, like this is an edited photo, right? They've spent time like airbrushing
Touching it
this.
up.
You look at the photo they got for Rory Darge. Like
That's true.
That's 3.5 years ago. That top. Hang on, let me
Yeah.
think. That's
this
that's
is
2021-22 season.
but
That's
it's,
The
ages
this is
ago.
the
Beelum one is
same.
22 as well.
This is the same
Or
for the
23.
URC as well. If you look on the player profiles on the URC website, all of the Irish players look like they're shot in 8K and then airbrushed after the fact, whereas everybody else just looks like photos been taken on a Nokia
It's a grainy
phone from
digital camera. Yeah.
yeah. So that's your bolter, Caolan, is that your man feeding Finley Bealham. Ben, who's your bolter?
I've gone for Sam Prendergast, purely because that performance yesterday, the maturity belied his age. He was absolutely fantastic yesterday. And I think it started from the first high ball he took. And he's got this, it's like this skill set you don't see a 10 do. He has that little dink inside and then kicks, and his kicking was absolutely fantastic. Actually, on the money. I think one of the first or second kicks he made, Kinghorn dropped it under pressure. There was just every kick he put up to the sky. There was the immediate pressure coming on. I don't think there was one that we marked in the 22. I think there was a lot of the kicks were contestable. His passing, and there was one particular pass. I'll go on to the pass for Calvin Nash because that was absolutely fantastic. Because he obviously Duan Mandever got dragged in, and then Prendergast just sees it and loops it over the top of four defenders. But there was one particular pass I saw which was so flat and so fast and just became a dominant hit into contact. And that was the first half as well. But I just think for someone who's and Caolan, correct me if I'm wrong, sixth cap yesterday, fifth or sixth cap. He was
Something like that, yeah. Give or take.
And Murrayfield is a difficult place to go and play away. We don't lose that many games at Murrayfield. And there was a lot riding on yesterday, but Prendergast was just absolutely fantastic. And it
He was
showed
very
that he
good.
played the full 80. Crowley
Yeah.
obviously came on and played at 15 because they obviously wanted to see Prendergast play the 80 out. But his only weakness is his tackling. I think he avoids contact defensively, if that makes sense. He doesn't look to tackle. So
Do you know what
a
my theory
stronger-
on that is? And it's not about the tackling. Do you know the buzz term in rugby? Oh, play to the gain line. There are two types of tens. There are tens who play to the gain line and tens who the gain line comes to them. And Sam was the second one. And that's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. Now, I think Tom English summed it up perfectly on the post-game pod for the BBC. Tom, being an Irishman, so we can give this opinion and not be claimed as biased. He did say, at the end of the day, lads, he's a 21-year-old 10 who got an armchair ride because Scotland did not put him under enough
Got
pressure.
an absolute armchair ride,
And
completely
as
uncontested.
He looked brilliant. But again, you can't, like, if you're Scotland, if you're Steve Tandy, who has this brilliant
You'd be
defence,
fuming.
they made Jack Crowley's life hell in the fixture last year, and it really shut Ireland down. They must be thinking to themselves, what did we do wrong? And it goes back to the Rory Darge thing. You mentioned he had double the amount of tacklers as the next best Scotland man, which is true. He had 17. Jack Dempsey had 8 yesterday. A lot of Scotland's regret over this game will be maybe we just talk to talk, but did not have the effort across the field and did not get up. And the Prendergast thing is one of those. You can't let a 10 control that game, not a young 10 like that.
Do you know why I think it didn't happen?
Go on.
The first 2 or 3 times the Scotland forward went in to go for Prendergast, whoever it was, or whether it was Stafford McDowell at 12, is that Prendergast just fainted inside. I think it was the first 2 or 3 times that happened, and maybe they just were put off after that and were like, we can't have the continued, ad infinitum for the rest of the game, because it definitely happened at least twice, if not 3 times the first 50. He just had that little deft sort of loop inside, and he was kicking out to the right, and it happened, definitely 3 or 4 times the first 15 minutes. I think maybe they just got switched off after that and were like, this isn't going to work because he's too quick at avoiding that contact. So maybe it was that. And in which case that speaks more to his strengths than the Scotland weaknesses there. I'm not saying we weren't weak, because we weren't dominant enough in that around the field in that at all yesterday. But Prendergast seemed to read it very early. And again, when you're young like that, I think you just anticipate a little bit quicker than maybe someone like Finn Russell, who's now 32. People still think he's young. It's hard to believe Finn Russell's well into his 30s now and has had a 10, 12-year international career.
He won a league
like
14 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, 2014, 2015.
14.
15. Yeah. And Prendergast, I think, just offers you something different there.
He does.
And I
Yeah.
think he goes as the third 10. I would say I would like to see him go as the third 10.
I
He
was
came of
pretty-
age yesterday. There's more games to play, of course, during the
Yeah.
tournament. But I think if he continues on that trajectory, then
He'll have
you know,
the
if he plays like that against France, then he goes.
yeah, and he'll have the look, not the luxury, but to a degree, a luxury that he will be on a Leinster team who will probably steamroll a lot of teams in the URC and a lot of teams in Europe, even in the next couple of weeks.
You know, he's barely played in the URC. Like on
Yeah.
Opta's stats website,
Burnley
He
has
went
to
on
start
the
more
Emerging
games
Ireland
this season.
tour, which is a factor. He missed 3 weeks there.
On Opta's stats website, you have to have played 240 minutes to be registered, and he's not registered. So
But
I think he's played
yeah,
more Champions Cup minutes than
because he
Well,
missed
that's only
he missed
3.5
3
games,
games,
isn't it?
yeah, he missed 3 weeks for. So he would have missed what 2 weeks for Ireland, 3 weeks for Emerging Ireland, another week because of resting, and didn't play in week. Oh no, he did play week 1, didn't play week 2. I think it was. I think Harry played
He
week
didn't
2.
play against. He didn't play against Edinburgh in week 1. Definitely didn't play.
Did not?
Because Rossburn was
Oh, it was
playing
Ross
with,
Byrne at 10. So there you go. So yeah, he's actually played a lot of European matches. He's playing really well. I know there are the people who call me that Caolan, it's Caolan by the way. The people who say that are probably expecting me to say, no, he wasn't good enough. It's Jack Crowley. I still think, personally, I think Jack Crowley's the better 10 right now. I understand why Ireland are doing this. I think it's more game plan more than evolution. So I don't think it's actually tied into let's plan for the future. I think it's more this is our game plan. Sam suits that. But he played really, really well. You can say that Scotland didn't put him under much pressure. As you said, Ben, he did dance his way out of it. And maybe if Sione is there, maybe he's the one to just keep that defensive defensive mindfulness, rigidity. Thank you. Maybe he's the one because again, they had to switch around after 20 minutes or 25 minutes where everything changes around again with new players coming in, and it did feed into it, and he grew into the game, played really, really well. Yeah, he has to work on his tackling. Like there's no doubt about that. I don't think there's any pundit in Ireland who can say he doesn't have to work on it. Not with the way the game is going. We've seen it with other 10s across, we've seen it with Garbisi before, with Jalibert, with Inchback before, with Marcus Smith before. He has to work on that. But he's got the kicking game, he's got the passing game, and he's got the... Look, you have to be somewhat blessed to come into an Irish team or a Leinster team that literally steamrolls 90% of the opponents that they play, and it's a great position to be in for a 10. He'd be the first one to say it. He has definitely had the air of someone who knows that, everything's going well in front of me. I've had such a good platform. And 10s love that. 9s love that. 10s love that. And 12s doesn't really make a difference. It's just going to crash up the middle.
I'll just quickly interject there. The interesting thing about this photograph is that it's a perfect advert for the fact that a 10 doesn't need to do arm day at the gym ever. Because that right arm does not look like it's been doing much. Apart from swinging. That's about it, I think.
Caolan, you were very magnanimous just then. This is on the official Six Nations website. Would you like me to show you the headline above this photo?
Oh, it's going to be like Sam shines in Murrayfield glaze or something like that.
Is this the Rory O'Connor one where Lions...
Oh, Jesus. That's worse than I thought. Can I ask who wrote it? Do we know?
For audio listeners, the headline is The Great Green Hope.
Yeah, that's quite something. Do we know who wrote it? No, I thought it said Sam Prendergast, but it's
it
not.
Might just be Six Nations
be,
staff. It might
was going to be autobiographical.
Yeah. So basically, someone wrote it. We're not going to tell you who.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. ChatGPT wrote it, everyone. There you go.
On my bolter then. So I've gone for Finn Smith. So I think this kind of carries on the conversation from Prendergast in terms of a young talent come in.
Yeah.
If you talk about career so far, Finn Smith has actually achieved more than Sam Prendergast. I don't know about his under-20s record. Obviously, Sam was incredible at that level. But Finn Smith has already won the English Premiership, and he steered Saints to a win down in Loftus earlier this season, which, as you know, we all know is no
it's a hard
feat.
task. Yeah.
But I have to say, in this, my personal opinion, England were transformed with him at 10. It is how I felt. I was looking at the stats before the game, and if you look at, some people question about Marcus's defense, and Marcus Smith's tackle percentage isn't so bad. It's fine. It's better than Sam Prendergast's by a lot. But if you look at the actual number of tackles that he tries to make at club level, not very many. Finn Smith isn't scared of a tackle. So if you're talking about compared to Sam Prendergast, Finn Smith is happy to make a front-on tackle, to stand in the line, be the man who the 12 runs at, and not shirk that responsibility, which is modern 10. And I think that as much as Finn Smith is a bolt, obviously player of the match down in Twickenham, Allianz Stadium. Player of the match in that game, and I think deservedly so, and has shown he's got the temperament as well. The significance of his emergence in this game is he is chipping away at Marcus Smith's position in this Lions team, in my opinion. I think Marcus Smith, we don't talk on this show about players who are playing themselves out of Lions contention, but I think that Marcus Smith's hopes have been hurt, not helped in these first two
I don't think
rounds.
he's
And I
playing
think
himself out of it. I think he still played well. I hope you can still hear me. I had to pull my chair back for a second. Um, I think he's still playing well, but if you're asking me who's more suited as a 10 to Test rugby, it is Finn Smith. And without going whole, like, I seen him first. I had no idea who this kid was until he came to Thomond Park last year and helped a 14-men Northampton win in Thomond in what was quite literally a storm. He's gone to Loftus Versfeld and won. He should have won in Croke Park in the European semi-final. He's won a premiership. He's beaten France in Twickenham in his first Test start. Like, we can talk about hype and whatever. That's not hype.
Allianz
That is
Stadium.
achievement. Sorry, the Allianz Arena in Munich. That's achievements, and you have to give credit to that, because as much as everything else, and I completely forgotten this till I got reminded by the beef on Twitter. This lad, like, he lost his job when Worcester went bust as a kid, and he's just bounced back and ascended. Like, most lads don't recover from that, even if they're 30. Like, that's incredible. That speaks incredibly well to
And
his mindset.
I think for me, like if you talk about like system versus individuality, Marcus Smith at the moment, and I'm sorry, I know it's a cliche, and I'm sure there's people who'll be pulling their hair out of me saying this, but he's still perceived as an individual. He is he's a special individual, but an individual nonetheless. And rugby is a 15, 23, 46, however many you want man game. And I think Finn Smith is more that. And in this England team, where I would argue that if Furbank is fit, 6 out of the 8 starting England's backline is five. Sorry, 5 out of the 7 England starting backline is Northampton Saints. You got to pick Finn Smith to be a part of that, and in doing so, that hurts Marcus Smith. It just does, and Andy Farrell's not taking Marcus Smith as a fullback, in my opinion. Now, and it's starting to become that the only reason that you take Marcus Smith is if you need that something different, i.e., you think that you might end up being 2 scores down with 20 minutes to go and you need to bring someone on. And I don't think Andy Farrell's going to be planning for that.
I don't think we anticipate that kind of game in Australia in any of those 3 tests. There will be 2 scores down.
And you talk
And
about
if
the
you
third.
do, if you're going to choose a player like that, and we mentioned Tom Jordan last week, but if you're bringing a 10 solely because you might have to bring them in to play outside in the backline to chase a game, Tom Jordan and Jack Crowley play 12 as well as 15 with the experience of doing it at club level much more than Marcus Smith. And I still have Marcus Smith as part of my 3. I still think Owen Farrell will have a word about that. I think if he gets back to any sort of form, it becomes a conversation. He's been hit with injuries, like quite a few of them since he went to Racing. It should be said, but it is true that for Marcus Smith, if Finn Smith gets to a Premiership final and Marcus doesn't, then, well, obviously the squad will be named before then, so you know what I mean. But if Finn Smith goes deep in Europe and Quins are likely to be out in the round of 16, and Finn Russell is top of the Premiership, there's going to be a conversation. And obviously, Sam Prendergast is going to be there with Leinster. Look, I hope Jack Rowley's there with Munster in the URC. Like, I'm not going to try and pretend I don't hope so. And Tom Jordan could be there as well as a utility player. It's someone is going to be squeezed out. That's the thing. It's not a case that they don't have the talent. I think someone's going to be squeezed out of it. If I was to call it, I think the 2 Finns go. And I think Marcus Smith goes. But I'm not confident on that at all. I would not put even a fiver on that.
Go on, Ben.
I think with Marcus Smith is that he wasn't tested at 15 at all in that game. I don't think he was
He
under
was
a
never going to
contestable
be.
kick, and exactly because of the way the French kick. However, he did go into the back line against Australia in that test, which they lost, and he was found wanting quite substantially. I think he was the reason why Australia won that game was because of his naivety coming in off the wing. I remember for that winning tackle, winning try. And I think things like that stick in the memory. That I think that would stick in Andy Farrell's mind when he's looking at it and go, what can he offer beyond being 10? If he's not tried again at 15 for the rest of the tournament, and the only evidence you have him playing 15 is that game where he wasn't given a challenge at all, then I don't think you can pick him. And if he, I think I struggle with both of them going as 10s on the Lions tour because I think Finn Russell will definitely go. I think it's one of them, and I think I feel like it'll be Prendergast will go as the third 10.
And the thing is, you're talking about England's issues at centres, and I know Ollie Lawrence is playing very well. If you're an England 10 and you're perhaps not bringing Henry Slade into the game, no disrespect to him, that's not going to be coming under scrutiny. If you're the Lions 10 and you're not bringing in Bundyaki, Robbie Henshaw, Sione Tuipulotu, Hugh Jones into the game, then that's a very different kettle of fish. And all of the narrative, and this includes England players do interviews and speak about this openly. Finn Smith is better at bringing his teammates into the game than Marcus Smith is.
He's a facilitator. That's exactly what he is.
I feel like that's what Andy Farrell will like. And Andy Farrell's cut his teeth as a defence coach, and Finn Smith's defence is better than Marcus's.
Andy Farrell is also the Ireland attack coach. It should also be said.
Yeah, well,
I do agree.
Andy Farrell's a world-class coach. He's phenomenal. But obviously, when Andy Farrell's gone on Lions tours previously, it's been as a defence coach.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And it may not come down to that. We may be overthinking it. I used this exact phrase the other day on my own podcast.
We have a podcast, so Kim, to overthink. We're here to overthink.
That's true. That is the point of a podcast. But yet, I went on a podcast and said, are we overthinking these things? But look, Finn Smith has got... I think you could put Finn Smith and Sam Prendergast age aside in the same bracket insofar as they're going to go deep with their clubs. They have the exact role that is suited to Test rugby that will never be out of Test rugby. The guy who's going to kick 80% and is going to get your centres moving is always going to be in vogue. They may not be the best player. They may not be... You might even be the third best 10 in your country. But if you can do that, you're going to be a fallback guy at the very least. Kind of like, for instance, a Ross Byrne has always been Ireland's fallback guy because that's what he does really well. And I think Finn Smith has got a very good chance. I think Northampton are likely to go deep in Europe and in the Premiership. Now, obviously, the squad will be named around semi-finals of Europe time based on when it usually is.
Early May?
That'll be early May, yeah. It's usually around then. They usually give it loads of time. Well, could talk about the timing of it for another day, about the repercussions it's had in years gone by. But I think it's going to play into his hands more so than Finn, more so than Marcus Smith. Unless Quinn's shock everyone, they win in Croke Park in Europe, it's going to play into his hands. If he gets these next 3 games, and if England do what they did, but, and I've used but a lot, can we trust England to do what they just did? Is the side of it. That's the thing.
That's the question. Well, that brings us
The sad thing about Finn Smith is he's
Ben,
Scottish
you ruined
qualified.
my very neat and tidy wrap up.
Sorry. He's Scottish qualified, but obviously opted for England, which was a bit sad. But
yeah. Well, that's a mark against you, Finn. Just quickly, we are normally a URC pod, so just want to mention the URC game that happened this weekend. If you want to check out South African Allianz view on that game, you can find it in the YouTube shorts somewhere and on our TikTok as well. TikTok is doing quite well. Also, YouTube's just past 1,500 subs. So thank you to everybody for the support on that. Fantastic. We love doing this show. So if you haven't subscribed already and you've gotten this far, give us a subscribe. How about that? But just very quickly on Stormers versus Bulls. Great game. It's put me in such a good mood, that game. It was a midday kickoff here in the UK, so it was ahead of the Six Nations games. Put me in such a great mood for the rest of the day. I loved watching it. Not the most serious game the whole way through. Obviously, the kicks at goal that were missed were some howlers. Both teams scored over 30, so there's a hint of defence is optional maybe amongst that. But like that's set in and amongst of it being the North-South derby in South Africa, one of the biggest games in club footy anywhere in the world. There's a lot of history to that fixture, a lot of off-field stuff to that fixture. It's on my bucket list to go to Cape Town to see that game one day. And I just absolutely loved watching it. I don't know, Ben, your thoughts? You caught bits of it?
I caught the end of it where that conversion was very horribly missed, and it reminded me. And I put in the group chat Brandon Thompson for Glasgow against the Dragons 4 years ago when he's hit the post from like 10, 15 meters out, pretty much bang in front. But yeah, I mean, I love Cape Town. I'd love to go to Cape Town. I'm very similar in that regard to you, Hugh, is that it looked like packed out to the rafters. Beautiful sunny day, open rugby, attacking rugby. Like you say, defence was optional, and a fantastic result and a great advert for the rest of the day. I think it was just a great game of rugby.
Yeah, the game that made me happiest of all of the ones that happened all weekend, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of this show. Thank you to everybody for listening/watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And just leaves me to say, enjoy the rugby, and I hope everybody's team wins. Cheers.
See you later.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.